Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson, and she honestly doesn't even get an intro because she's been on, this is like her third time coming on. So, everyone should know who this is. We have, Jeannie on the podcast, and, she's just coming off her first pro win, everyone. So, everyone wish her congratulations on that. She won the Tampa Pro. And yeah, we're on here to talk about that as she's getting ready for the Olympia. I mean, if you couldn't tell, she's getting ready. I mean, some of these guests like you, I mean, it's so out there that like you can't really deny that you're getting ready for a show or that you're even like in the middle of a season. But again, thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, I ask this every single time I have you on. I'm going to continue to ask it every single time I have you on. What is the weather like today?
Actually today, a little on the cloudy side, raining a little bit, but humid. Sun pops out every so often, so it's a little humid, but a little overcast.
It's the same weather here. I got to go for my walk right after I'm done talking to you because it might rain tonight. And there have been too many times, because I love walking at night, but there have been too many times where it has started downpour and then I have to call someone to come and pick me up like 2 miles away from my house. And that is not a fun time. I'm surprised I haven't gotten sick once ever, but there have been a couple times where, yeah, these, don't even get me started on these weathermen. Yeah, there's a 10% chance of rain tonight, so you shouldn't really be too worried about anything. Then we get about an inch of rain.
Wow.
So I want to have a weather person on one of my podcasts just so I can rip them for a full hour long, just me of just like tearing them apart because it's like, but here's the thing. So before we get into the bodybuilding stuff, everyone, here's how these weather people get away with it. They say a chance of, so technically they aren't wrong then when they say, because it's only a 10% chance of rain. They didn't say, it's going. So everyone, if you ever want to get away with, make sure to just say chance of in front of something like, there's a 10% chance that I'll come over to your house. And then when you don't go to that person's house and they say, why wasn't you say there's a chance of, okay. So that's the one thing that I've learned from these weather people. But yeah, before we just get into that tangent, because we were getting pretty close there where I was just going to explode for the next, 20 minutes and just talk about just that. I mean, you won the Tampa Pro. What was that like? Just go through the motions with us. And before that, even like, what's this last year been like for you? It's been a little over a year since we last had you on.
Yeah, and it's been a year since I stepped on stage. I decided to take some time off and to work on my weaknesses before I got back on stage. And I'm so glad I did it. I was very worn out all the other times from, just hitting show after show after show, that I think it just took a toll on my body. I couldn't make the improvements that I wanted to make. So taking that time off did me a lot of good, and you know, ended up winning.
What would
So
you say is the area that you've improved on the most since you took the year off of bodybuilding?
my legs, my glutes, my hamstrings, definitely made a lot of improvements on my legs.
Did you change up your training for that, or was it just they finally caught up after all these years? Or
I mean, I really focused a lot on just isolating a lot, and on the days that I felt good that I can hit heavy, I pushed myself, and I really, you know, and just a lot of isolation, a lot of glute hamstring isolation, it really helped.
the most boring lifts in the world. So more power to you that you got through that type of stuff, because I mean, yeah, I've talked about this plenty of times, but yeah, my leg days, they are not a fun time. But going into the Tampa Pro, was there maybe like a different feeling? Did you have a different feeling about it? Like, do you think like, hey, this could finally be possible? Because I mean,
Yeah.
you did bring a totally different package. So I would hope that you would at least think like, hey, things can be different now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, went in very, very confident. I mean, even if I wouldn't have won it, I would have said, okay, I really came in and I really made some improvements. So I went in really confident. So it gave me a sense of calmness. I felt very calm. I felt like everything was right. Everything felt right. Everything fell into place the way it should have. I was calm. I was everything just flowed.
Could you tell that you were probably going to win at a certain point, or was it up until the very end where you were just like, okay, this could go either way?
You never know. I've come close so many times that I never want to tell myself that until it's actually like official. But like the year before that, I've come like in the New York Pro, I came really close. The Tampa, I came really close as well. So I didn't want to think that and then to get disappointed. So I didn't want to. I mean, I didn't look at the social media. I didn't want to hear anybody's comments after prejudging, but I knew I was at least second. And I knew that they were liking what they saw because I could tell by the looks on the judges' faces. They were nodding, they were smiling, and they like what they saw on stage. So I felt confident, but I never wanted to say 100%, oh, it's mine, because you never know.
That's just the mental side of the sport too that we get into a little bit. But I mean, it's just, yeah, you can never tell. Just some people.
Yeah.
I've said this many times since then, but like a month ago, I went to my first ever bodybuilding show. It was the Twin Cities Open, and I went there because it's literally 5 minutes from my house, and I met some guests that I had on. But like, yeah, you can. There were some times because like me and two of the guests that I just recently had on, we kind of like would do a thing where like during every like event, like the men, the women would come on, we would say like who was our favorite and who we thought was going to win, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was not that accurate myself personally because, I'm the gym bro. So, if you got a nice upper body, I could care less about legs. Okay, everyone, like, that's the way it should be. That's the way God intended it, at least in the gym bro mind. But, so, there is that. But yeah, it's just, and I was shocked too about how most of the judging is done in prejudging because that was, I mean, I'd
Oh,
never
yeah.
really talked about that with guests because then it was so funny when they came out at the end and then they just basically did their posing routine and then the judges immediately announced like who'd won. I was like, they really can tell that quickly. And they're like, oh no, they got most of the results then. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. The prejudging is, I mean, is where you're judged. That's it. That's where they pretty much. But it can change. What if it's so close? If the points are so close, if you're talking like 3 points away, and this girl's, we're that close in look, but this girl kills it on the posing, on the routine, then she takes it. It's those small little differences that make it, a number one or a number two.
have you ever accidentally made the mistake that I mentioned to the people I was talking to where you might have accidentally ate a little too much in between prejudging and finals and that might have cost a little bit?
No, I never do that. I always make sure that, yeah, if I'm that close, if I'm in the top 5, I'm not going to eat a burger or anything like that. I'm keeping it, staying on track until after the night show.
If I was above and beyond better than everyone else and like I knew like there's some times where there's just one guy or gal that's just so much better than him that like they know they're gonna win. I would just as a joke just have like 10 Big Macs in between prejudging and finals and just come out there with just the biggest beer gut ever and just be like, thank you guys, I'm really appreciative of everything and all that. So I would just do that just to kind of troll the audience a little bit. But yeah, again, reason 9,999 why I don't compete in bodybuilding because I would find a way to mess everything up. Just, me being me. But what was going through your mind when they announced your name and you're like, okay, I finally have a pro win now?
My God, I pictured that moment in my head since the first day I would say when I started pro bodybuilding, when I became a pro. And I pictured getting my crown and my sword and them announcing my name over and over again. I just, I knew it was going to happen, but I just didn't know when. But and just the fact because I've come close so many times and it's been so disappointing. It's almost worse to get second than to get like fifth or sixth. Because like last year I got second or third, or no, not last year, the year before that. I was so close that it's just so disappointing. But we were standing in line and they're calling the names, and the girl they call once we got to like second place, that's when I started getting nervous because I was like, God, if they call my name for second place, or it's gonna be so frustrating. But then they called the girl from Mexico, and then I was like, that's it, it's mine. It was amazing.
You have made the perfect argument why I always tell people being a Minnesota Vikings sports fan is the hardest job in the world or the hardest sports team because like you said, being in second place is much harder than getting fifth or sixth. People always tell me, "Oh, why at least you're not the Lions or the Browns or something like that." And it's like, "No. It's much harder to finally get there and then lose than be like a team that just perennially sucks." And I will debate anyone on that. You can comment down below. I don't
Yeah.
care about the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo who? Who cares? It's the Vikings. But before we get again, you can tell like everyone. This is before I take like a 2 week break from podcasting, so I'm just firing on all cylinders right now because I'm like, okay, we're getting close to the finish line. Right? It's like these competitors when they're about to step on stage and you're like, okay, we're getting close to the finish line here. So there's that.
Yeah.
So I gotta, if I start getting too off topic, you are more than welcome. Just snap your fingers
Oh,
at the
no,
camera like this a little bit, and then I'll
no,
I'll
you're
zone back in. That was a little ADHD thing that my teachers would
that's all
sometimes,
right.
do that whole thing. But I've always wondered this too, and I've asked it one other time, but the guest didn't realize why do they give you guys swords for trophies? Because don't get me wrong, it is great. Like I think that's like the coolest thing about the sport, but like a sword is just like for a bodybuilding show. It's like why would you do a sword? Like I've always just found that interesting why they chose to give swords out as a prize too.
I don't know why. All I know is I always wanted one, but I don't know why. I don't know.
Oh, if I was you, I would have that thing
I
sheathed
have
right
not.
now. I would have that thing sheathed right now as I was talking to me if I was you right now, basically. And I would just whip that thing. I mean, that's just
Here you go.
okay. Okay. She's just like,
There it
oh,
is
that is
right here.
awesome. That is awesome.
There's my sword
That is
and
great.
my crown, which I'm getting ready to hang in my gym.
Great. That is awesome.
So yeah, I'm not sure why they do give swords, but it's
I wish
cool.
they'd give them off for everything. Are you kidding me? That would be so much better. But yeah, like I've seen and they even do it for like power finish and stuff like that. I was like, maybe someone just first decided that, and everyone's like, oh, that's cool. And then they also do different kinds because yours is kind of like a samurai sword, and other
Yeah.
ones they do like those English swords, like the long swords and stuff. So
Oh,
it's
that's the one I want. I love those English swords.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
so
that is. I had a friend of mine whose brother was really into that type of stuff, so he had just a whole arsenal downstairs. He'd have like everything, and whenever I'd go over there, of course, I would have to go and it probably wasn't a smart idea to just leave those around so like friends could go around and like touch them and stuff. Like accidents could probably happen, but hey, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately, nothing wrong did happen. But what was that post show like after you won your pro card? Did you go all out just on the food, or did you just kind of say like, "Hey, I need to treasure this more"? Where were you at?
I don't know. It was like a sense of being numb, and it didn't sink in until I actually came home. But I was, I don't know. I was like, oh my God, it finally happened. But food wise, no, I never. I mean, I've learned my lesson with that. I kind of know how to deal with that, and I kind of go slow. I don't really go crazy on the food because it just makes me sick. Just had some sushi and went out with some my good friends. I was surrounded by my family and just everybody calling me and texting me and congratulating me, and it was just, I don't know, amazing. It still is. I mean, people still now. It's weird because like so many people see it like whoever's not a bodybuilder or or whoever is, for example, your fan or the members of my gym, and the way they look up to it and say, "Wow, the accomplishment," and it's like, I mean, the way they see it through their eyes, it's so nice because it's like I don't see it as the everyday grind, and I just go through the motion because I just love the sport. But it's so much more gratifying when people come to me like, "Wow, I admire you. You inspire me," or that to me is just, it just makes it so much more special.
Do you have any plans on competing in any more shows during the before you go to Olympia? Because I've had some guests on, even though they qualified, they still do the shows, and I don't really have an opinion on that. But I've had some people be like, "Why do you do that then?" Because it's kind of like a waste of money then for some people. But do you plan on doing anything else before the Olympia, or just getting ready for the Olympia?
This year, I'm planning to just get ready for the Olympia. I've always wanted to do a one and done show. You know what I mean? And just really like leave everything for the Olympia and not exhaust my body anymore. But I know that a lot of pros go to the Phoenix show right before. That's kind of like so that they're in front of the judges right before the Olympia. And it's a great show, and the prizes are you win good money in that show because it's a Wings of Strength show, and they're just very generous with the prize money, and best poser. They give all kinds of gifts and I mean prizes and stuff like that it's nice. But I don't think I'm going to do that this year, but I definitely will do that show next year.
So, like, let's say since you've already won the Tampa Pro, like, let's say if you went to one of those shows and won, would the second place person then basically get the automatic qualifier to the Olympia, or would they still? Oh, so it just
Uh,
doesn't get grandfathered down,
that's why
basically.
it's so frustrating sometimes. I don't like to take the position away from another girl. It's not right. I mean, listen, there's two ways of thinking, of looking at it. Some girls are like, okay, well, I'm good, so come beat me, which makes, yeah. But at the same time, like you want to give opportunities to other girls to go to the Olympias. So you're kind of taking that away from them. That's just my opinion, but.
Well, the best is Andrea Shaw. She doesn't even have to compete in anything. She just has to like just show up at the Olympia again. Then basically, where it's
Right,
just yeah.
right.
But I have talked to some people who were that second place person then to someone who had already qualified then for the Olympia again, and I totally forgot about like what the thing. And yeah, that is kind of
Yeah.
that's. I think there should just be a whole separate category though for people that have already qualified for the Olympia though, kind of if they've already won a show, like because I know the
Right.
point
Like
system's up, but like
I would do what you said. I would give it to the second
yeah.
girl, the second place girl, you know? And I think maybe the judges should consider the fact that the girl won it already. She already qualified, and say, hey, look, we'll give you second, but because you're already qualified, or something fair that everybody's happy with.
Yep. Well, and one of the new questions that I've come up with for the show, even though I've been doing, over 500 podcasts on this show alone, shows how good of a host I am that it took me this long to come up with these. But When it comes to show day, what is your favorite part about show day, and what is your least favorite part about show day?
Oh my gosh, my favorite part about show day is just being on that stage and being in front of the judges, just being able to showcase everything that I worked so hard for. I love being on stage. Just the whole experience of it. And then after the show, just like reflecting and that feeling of wow, I'm done with that, and feeling satisfied. My least my least favorite is when you're getting ready and you're rushing that morning of, and getting everything, getting timing your food, timing your tanning, your hair, and this and all that nervousness that goes into that uh, time right before prejudging. It's very nerve wracking. I don't want to say least favorite, but that's the most, I guess, stressful part of it for me.
Well, and I never realized until I went to a show, like, how long that whole day is. Like, you
Is
get up so early, and then some people aren't out of it until, like, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and you're spending, like, 16, 17, 18 hours doing all that, where that's one thing that I was not aware of, like, how just time consuming it is. So I wish they could maybe change it a little bit, where it's like, obviously, yeah, give them a couple hours in between, prejudging and finals, just so that they can kind of recuperate and stuff. But it's like,
That's what they do, though. We get a few hours. Like, for example, like women's physique, well, we're usually the first or second or third to go up on. So, like, we'll be on stage by 10 o'clock in the morning, but you got to wake up at 5 because you got to get everything done. So by 9, 10, we're on stage. And then maybe by 12, we're done. And in the Tampa, right at 2, 3 o'clock already, we were back on stage. But we were done by 5.
yeah, see, the show I went to, it was like the same time, really, but then they started at 5 after that. So then they gave them like a full 5 hours in between prejudging and
Yeah,
finals, where you're just
yeah.
like, come on,
They
guys.
used
So
to do that, but now they cut it shorter. They tend to. I've noticed now that they tend to run through the shows a lot quicker. Like they want you in and out. So I guess it's good and bad.
which, I mean, honestly, they should just do like a 2-stage thing though, really, then, because like we've talked about multiple times, like, you guys put so much work into your routines and everything, and sometimes you're only on that stage for a few minutes, where it's like, just to have 2 separate stages, then, where then you can like have other people do, like, I mean, yeah, my whole thing is like, with the amount of work that you guys put in to like have that little amount of time to really show things off and stuff. Now again, most of the time when you are on that stage and posing, you are not really in the best of shape mentally and physically, so maybe a little bit less time is what needs to be. But like, and the fact that they were serving booze too at the show for the finals, I'd never heard of that before. Well, it was at a
That's
casino too,
awesome.
so. But here's my thing. I was like, these guests, it's like, you really don't want to give some of these posers like alcohol after show, because like they'll take one shot probably, and they'll probably just be out of it, just because of how
Oh yeah.
drained and stuff
Oh
they
yeah.
are.
No,
So,
depleted. I mean, because alcohol. I mean, you're taking diuretics and stuff like that. So on top of it, alcohol is a diuretic as well. So that can't be very good. So yeah.
I'd never heard that alcohol is a diuretic. Now I need to become an alcoholic. Then it looks like, I guess, but
Well,
no,
I
that
would
is.
think, like, don't you wake up like the next day after like drinking like really dehydrated? So it kind of like
Oh, that's
it
just
is a
because it
little
takes all of your water out, really. So you can,
right.
yeah,
Exactly. It acts like a diuretic.
yeah. It makes you lose the water weight and stuff like that, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's well,
Yeah.
in
I know some bodybuilders that actually drink vodka the night before to get the water out for the next day. I'm not talking like drunk, like
I
a
was gonna
lot.
say, like, yeah, if they were hungover on that stage,
No, no, no. A
that would
couple
be
shots.
hilarious.
That's
But yeah.
it.
But I have one. So the highlight of my podcast was that I've gotten 2 guests to admit that, yeah, they might have taken like a shot or 2 before they walked on
Yeah,
stage, because
it's common.
see, but no one was ever willing to admit that. I'd ask that question, people be like, "Oh, I've never done that personally myself," and I don't get why no one's ever admitted that, because it's like, I would do that. I'd be the first
Why
person to
not?
do that,
It
really, because it's like,
relaxes you and it,
yeah.
calms you down, calms your nerves.
Well,
Why
I've heard
not?
some people say like, "Oh, it might put on some extra like water weight and stuff like that." I was like, really, one shot right before you step up on stage is really going to make the difference?
If anything, it takes the water out.
Yeah, it's like, I could maybe see if you chugged the whole gallon of water right before you walked on stage. Maybe that might do a thing. But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
No.
yep, there is that. But how have you been dealing with There's such a long space of time in between the Tampa Pro and the Olympia. Did you sort of go into somewhat of a mini off season, or you've been trying to keep things sort of on prep for because what is it, like
Yeah.
3-4 months in between shows?
Well, I figured I would give myself 17 weeks out. So I gave myself a couple weeks to just, eat what I wanted to eat, kind of like reboot myself and just, mentally, physically, to just have that little break. And then 17 weeks, I said, okay, that's it. It's time. And then you just get back on the diet. The training always, of course, stays the same, but get back on that diet again and get ready.
Well, and talking about your preps and stuff like that, like your husband is your coach, which is the
Yes.
amount of times that I've heard that's probably been about a dozen, and that just to me, as an outsider, I'm just being completely honest. It does not seem like a good idea because I'm one of those people where I do not like to mix business with pleasure, really. But has that added an extra dynamic sort of to your relationship, other than just being husband and wife, being that he is actually your coach as well?
I mean, we own a gym together. We're together all the time, so it's kind of like we've been used. I'm used to it. I mean, he's like my best friend. We do everything together. Don't get me wrong. We have our days, and when I'm grumpy and I'm on low carbs and I don't feel like doing what he tells me to do, we have those days, of course, but I know that I have to suck it up because at the end of the day, he got me to the Olympia 3 times. So I got to listen to him.
Can I just say how lucky of a guy he is, though, that he is like one of the few guys on the planet that can actually criticize his wife's looks and not have it be like a whole big thing then like that? He's the one person that can say, oh, you're holding a little bit of water today, or you're looking a little
Right.
chunky
I'm not
today.
going to get in
So
trouble for that, right?
absolutely. So enjoy it while you have it,
Right.
because it's not going to last forever. And yeah,
Right.
I could not go up to someone and say that. So, he is living the dream, at least in that aspect where it's like, you can at least, do all that, but that is great. And I mean, and at least you have that accountability where like he'll be the first person to know if you ever did like eat a little too much or something like that because it's like he's living with you, so it's kind of
And
nice
I
to hard to
can't
hide that.
cheat, like, because he's watching me.
That too.
He's watching me. So, yeah, it's even, yeah, I guess it's a good thing, but at the same time, I have him watching me 24/7.
Have you changed up your nutrition at all since you last competed?
Um, I mean, for the Tampa, I really knuckled down on my diet. I really, really wanted to come in leaner than I've ever, because I knew, that I knew I had a lot more definition underneath, but I felt like I never came in lean enough to show it. And I think that that's also another thing that really made a difference in me winning the Tampa is coming in so much leaner than all the other shows. So I knuckled down pretty hard on the diet and came in much leaner and did a little bit more cardio, not a lot because I'm not one of these people that believe that 3 hours of cardio a day. I don't I'll do my fasted in the morning and I'll do my post workout afterwards, and it's no more. I won't go more than 40, 45 minutes.
I had one guest on recently who everyone will know who she is because she mentions it, and I'm just bringing it up. An hour in the morning, half an hour in the afternoon, and half an hour at night.
Well, I just think that if you need to do that much cardio, then you're probably you need more time to prep.
I mean, she did lose 40 pounds from her off season to her prep look, so
That's a hell of a lot of weight to put on you.
yeah. She put on a lot. I'll tell you, she is in the background, but yeah, she looked. But the thing is, like, she looked like one. She was one of the most like defined people that I've had on the show because she did put all that stuff. But like, that is going to an extreme where, like, yeah, 2 hours a day. I don't know if I could do that myself
Yeah.
personally. So
I
again,
mean, I think honestly, if you're in your off season, you shouldn't put any more than 15 pounds. You should keep it within that, so that way you really stress out your body putting on 40 pounds of weight and having to take it off every time you go and you start, prepping for a
this
show.
was because she was going up a division though. So I think that's kind of like had to be where then she like kind of had to
Oh,
put on a little
well,
bit
yeah,
more. Yeah,
that
yeah.
that too. I know that a lot of women do that. Like if they're going up a division, they have to put on size, but that's different type of size. Maybe it's not fat. Maybe it's more, you know, put you on a lot more muscle as well.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking on divisions, I mean, the Arnold just announced. I mean, it's not even having figure next year. What has this been like for you? I mean, just seeing this happen because now it's got to the point where it's like, wait, are you not even going to have any female divisions? And then, like a year from now, like it's ridiculous.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing because I just feel that. I mean, I know that there's a lot of shows that are just bikini girls or just this. I get it, but I think bodybuilding is bodybuilding, and all categories should be pretty much in all shows. Yeah, I don't think you should pick and choose which ones you want. I mean, it's a sport of bodybuilding, so you should have everything from bikini all the way up to women's bodybuilding. Why pick and choose what you want, and especially being the Arnold. I mean, that is like I mean, little by little, it's like, what's going to be left? What do you want? I don't know if it's because of money, or I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but I think it's a shame because it's a great show. I did it twice, and one of my favorite shows to do. It was a great experience for me, and it's a shame.
It would be bad enough if it was like, say, the Tampa Pro or something like that, but it's named after the one guy who's done more for the sport of bodybuilding than really, really. I mean, when so many people in the general public think about bodybuilding, they think about Arnold Schwarzenegger. So the fact that it's named after him, and it's probably like, for a lot of people, it's the second biggest show out there, other than the Olympia. Really, it's the fact that they're doing that. I mean, it's
Definitely. But I think they're going through a lot of changes. I don't know what's going on. There's something very, very strange going on there. I don't know what it is, but I know they're going through some changes. So we'll see what happens. Maybe that'll change. I don't know.
it'll be interesting to see, yeah, like 5 to 10 years from now, where things will be
Yeah.
at, as they stand. And I didn't talk to you about this last time I had you on, because it was still happening on. But I mean, last year was such a watershed year when it came to just people realizing how extreme the sport of bodybuilding can be, because there were so many deaths and so much
Yeah.
was happening that, even as someone who's aware of some of the extremes that this sport requires, I mean, it was still shocking to me that, I mean, I had a guest that died 2 weeks before I was supposed to have her on the podcast. Like, it was,
Really?
yeah,
Oh
it
my.
was it was shocking, and that really opened my eyes for me. And what was that like for you as a competitor, just being on the inside and seeing just how drastic things got last year?
It's sad. It's so sad because people, I know, we love the sport of bodybuilding, and I know there's a lot of competitors that will do anything to win. But at the same time, once bodybuilding is done, you still have to go on. You have to make sure that you're healthy throughout. It's not the healthiest sport. We know that. Everybody knows that. We do things to an extreme. But there's ways of doing it and monitoring it. I'm sorry, I got my tongue twisted.
It happens to me every time. I'm coming up with my
Yeah,
own compilation of it, and it's already 4 minutes long of me just getting tongue tied and twisted. So
yeah.
your addition will be welcome. That at least there's another guest time, because
Maybe
it's
cut
it's
that
ninety
part
percent
out
me.
when
Yeah,
you edit.
yeah.
But anyways, but like, there's you do your blood test. You check your blood after every cycle that you do, or whatever it is, every show. You check everything. You check your heart, you check your hormones, you check your blood, you see where you're at, you see what's going on. That way, if you need to, take a break, or you need to pull things back a little bit, and just do it. There's ways of doing it, that's the smart way. Not overdoing it on the diuretics like these people do, because if you get yourself lean enough, you don't have to hit the diuretics so hard. And the diuretics are so dangerous, you know. So I mean, if you take more time in the first, maybe instead of like taking 12 weeks out for prep, then do 20 weeks. Get lean, and do less diuretics, or less stuff. Work harder in the gym. You know. That's how I look at it.
Well, and I agree 100%. I was not aware until they started releasing the deaths, like how big of a part diuretics played in that. Because a lot of people just think, oh, it's just from some of the performance enhancing drugs and stuff like that. But it was mainly, a lot of it was just the diuretics, which is,
Yeah,
I mean, because yeah, it's dangerous, and a lot of people. I'm not blaming the competitors at all, but a lot of it has been. I mean, obviously, a lot of fault is at the coaches as well for prescribing these things. Really, some of these extreme, you know. I've heard of some people's cycles where it's like, I'm surprised that they're still alive, that I'm talking to them. But like, some people don't ask enough questions with their coaches too, where
right.
they just have their mouths open the whole time. They just willingly do this stuff without thinking, like, hey, how could this
Could
affect my
research
health?
anything and everything. You don't have to leave it up to the coach, because maybe you don't know. We automatically assume that we think that the coach knows everything and that they're doing, but some of them don't. But do the research, and there's no reason for girls or any bodybuilder to be taking three different types of diuretics at the same time. you know and for a long period of time. I've heard of people cutting water for like 4 to 5 days and taking three different diuretics. I mean, your heart's gonna just, it's just crazy. You can't do that. But like I said, it's on the coach, and it's also on the athlete, because it's your body. You're responsible for your own self, you know
Yeah, you never know. Well, it's kind of like a personal story where I was taking when I was very young and I first got like diagnosed with ADHD. Like, I have the spaz kind where it's the whole thing. But like, I was taking two different pills, and they were making when they were going solo, like, they worked and everything like that. But when you took them together, like they were offsetting each other. So then it was making things even worse for me, really. Then,
Yeah.
so people don't understand that. They think that like, oh, if I were to take like 5 different things, then it's really gonna make it. It's like, no, there are some combinations that can be even worse for you than if you were taking nothing at all. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah, I mean,
research.
they could really turn without the water, your muscle, your heart is a muscle, and if you cramp, your heart can cramp and you're dead. So that's just from diuretics alone, not to mention all the other stuff that's taken in excess. So just do your research. You can find anything nowadays. You can read up on anything. If your coach tells you this is the list of things you're going to do, okay, look up every little thing and see what it can do to you, or the amount that you're supposed to be that you can find the answers anywhere nowadays.
Yeah, that excuse might have worked in the 80s and 90s, but like now that we have all of this technology and stuff like that, it's like
Right.
no, you have really no excuse like that. And I get it. Some people are just so dieted down and stuff like that that it's hard for them to research. But it's like if you're in this sport, you should be on top of those things. But
Yeah.
another
And
question,
do blood work too.
that
Do
too,
blood
a lot of
work.
people forget that. Yeah, they
Do
really
blood work. You can find out everything through blood work. What if you have a underlying condition you had no idea that you had, and then you're taking stuff that could just make it worse? But if you do your blood work, you'll know exactly what's going on in your body.
absolutely. Well, and another question that I came up with is, what in your opinion makes a good coach? Because I know your dynamic is a little bit different from a lot of other people that, I mean, it is your husband, but I've heard so many stories of people that, like, oh, they find a coach and they last like a year with him. And then I've heard other stories where people last, decades with someone. And for every person, it's different. It's kind of like being a teacher where it's like, some teachers, if you scold a kid, like they need that, like they enjoy that, or they don't enjoy that, but like
Right.
it worked good for them. The other ones, they might just break down and then they're just like, they can't take with it. But in your own personal experience, what in your opinion makes a good coach?
In my opinion, a good coach is definitely, first of all, number one, that cares about your health. Number one. Number two, that when they're doing the whole process of prepping for a show, explaining everything, why this is done, even when you're working out, like why is this exercise combined with this exercise? How does that benefit you? But just explaining, and that's the way I like to be coached, because I ask questions. I like to know, and my husband sometimes gets annoyed at me because he thinks that I don't. I'm not trusting his knowledge, but it's not that. I just want to know the reasoning of why you're combining that with that, you know? But I think a good coach is somebody definitely that cares and explains everything and is there for you throughout the whole process. I don't believe, I mean, yes, I have tried different coaches because my husband had open heart surgery last year. So I did go with a different coach. There was a friend of ours that, that I already worked with a little bit here and there, just, and he's very knowledgeable as well. But I just feel that, they need to be there for you, you know, check up on you. It's not just every so often, oh, hey, how you doing? Or send me this, send me that, That's why, I know there's a lot of online coaches that are good. Some of them are great. Some of them maybe not so great. But being on top of your athlete and treating each athlete, even though if you have 20 of them, treating all of them, give them all the same attention that they deserve, you know. Um, there's a lot of times like for example, when you come off of a show, that you go through the rebounding of coming off of the diuretics and stuff like that, that a lot of time coaches don't explain that. And some athletes go through a little bit of a depression after that, because first of all, they're not as lean as they were before, and mentally, you come off the whole show excitement, but you also have to explain to the athlete too that this is going to happen and this is what you need to mentally prepare yourself for, and just explain everything, be there, and just care for the athlete, and not just say, okay, you're number 11, not a number 20 something. I don't know if that makes sense,
Oh,
but
absolutely. I mean, I can equate that perfectly to actually my podcast, because there are sometimes when I invite people to come on the podcast, there are some of those people that need to ask 50 different questions to me before they come on. Like, what exactly? Like, they ask everything, and then it gets to a point where I'm not gonna lie, I get annoyed, but I know they're just being curious and they know they try to know that. And then I have some people where I message them once and they're literally like, yeah, I'll come on this Tuesday without even asking any questions. And I'm just like, oh,
like
okay.
me.
Like that. Yeah, like
Right.
her. That's again one of the reasons why. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the reason why. But like, but I've had other guests too where like it's paragraphs upon paragraphs that they need me to respond to. And I do it, but it's like, oh my God, this is so time consuming. But again,
Yeah,
you meet all different
that's
types
a
of
little
personalities with
much.
this, but
That's a little much.
I'm
Yeah, I
exaggerating a
mean, like,
little bit with
on
that.
top
I'm
of
exaggerating a little bit with that, but like you know
yeah.
what I'm saying, where it's like, yeah,
But yeah, and I'm not saying like, you know what I mean. You have to be like hold their hand throughout the whole thing, but like, you know, be there, you know, and just let them know that you're there. Check up on them, and you know, just you know, walk them through a lot of, especially athletes that are competing for the first time. You know, you know, they don't know what to expect, and they don't know, what to do all the time. So just to guide them through the whole process and be there for them.
absolutely. Yeah, that especially since like I said when I went to my first show, like I learned so much just even from that, even though I've been talking to bodybuilders for like almost 4 years now. I learned more from just going to a show than I have from talking to really any of these guests as great as these guests have been, but like it's just it's one of those things where once you get that own firsthand experience, like I didn't compete or anything, but like just that firsthand knowledge of just viewing it where
Right.
you kind of just learn a lot more. You're like, oh, that's why some of my guests talked about that type of thing on the
Right.
show when I was wondering like why are they talking so much about, like their how important their tan is. And I realized that because one of the guys' tan was running, and that was
Right?
I felt
Not
bad.
good.
I felt bad for the guy, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Or some of them look like orange because you know they did their own tan at home, or yeah, it's like yeah, it's bad.
yeah,
But yeah, little things like that. Anywhere from guiding them from picking their jewelry, or the person that they should buy their suit from or buy the shoes, all the way up to like when they get on stage, and get off stage, even afterwards. You don't forget about them once they're done competing. You follow up with them afterwards as well. So that, in my opinion, is a good coach.
and I mean, you are getting ready to move, like you mentioned before we start recording, and that can be a very stressful time. As I'm going through that myself, and it can be very stressful. How are you dealing with that type of stress while you're on prep? Because stress and prep really aren't the best friends, really.
Yeah, no, but and I'm running my gym, my business too, and everything, and I do meal preps for people too. So I have a lot on my plate, but I tend to do good under pressure. I do, but I have my days that I'm like I just want to scream, I want to be like, okay, I can't, but then gather the pieces and move on, but I got to do what I got to do. I just plan my days out very well. I mean, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I train people. I have my trainees, and then I do my own training, and then everything is scheduled, everything, and then on top of it, whatever time I have left, I pack up my stuff, and usually on the weekends I'm packing. Now I have boxes all over the place, but that's you got to deal. It is what it is. Life also, you can't stop life because you're prepping.
Well, at least with you and your husband, the way you look, you guys probably don't even need movers really to help you out. I mean, I just picture that scene of Little Giants where the kid's carrying the fridge down the walkway. That could just be that could just be her, everyone. Then yeah, so
No,
uh,
that's the last thing I want to do. I want to do
exactly,
all the lifting for the gym, not
that's
not at
true.
home.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Like if it was in an off season, it might be a different story, even though it probably wouldn't be. But yeah, I mean, that's at least there is that at least. But yeah, that is again, it's stressful. How do you tend to deal with stress though in general? Because I've talked to people where if they have one stressful thing in their life, it can sort of derail them, and that they aren't competitors because that would just they wouldn't even be able to compete in the first place.
Yeah,
But
then you
yeah,
wouldn't be able to
how do
handle
you
it. Yeah.
generally deal with stress? Because that really just shows up. That to me at least shows a lot about a person how they're able to deal with stressful times.
Um, well, what I like to do, and thank God, I mean, I have my husband by my side, and he, we talk about things, and when I'm feeling stressed, and he brings me back to reality, and he's a very calm. He has a very calm demeanor about him, and that keeps me level headed. But I happen to be, and he taught me to be like that. You know, to be calm, and out of every, sometimes you think it's a bad thing or a stressful thing, but it always turns out to be okay at the end of the day. You know. So that's the way I try to look at it. Okay, so it's a little bump in the road, but we'll get through it, and you know, I like to be. I think being very organized with everything helps to manage the stress and to make things go flow and get things done. you know so I try to plan everything out, and that's one thing that bodybuilding has really taught me, is to be very organized with everything, with even just my life in general.
this sport basically demands a type A personality. Like I've met a handful of type B personalities on this podcast, but they are the 1% exception where they're just more like the go with the flow, where like whatever happens, happens. And a lot of it is because they don't really have families or they don't really have stuff to worry about on the offside. Like a lot of them are the younger kids where like, yeah, they still just like, they just have to worry about really working out and maybe going to their day job. But like, I've found that to definitely be the case. But yeah, that type A is something that's,
You have to be like that if you want to, yeah, if you want to do good in bodybuilding, you have to really be, there has to be structure and there has to be, you have to have everything just planned out. I mean, that's just the way it is.
yeah, 100%. And I mean, I've mentioned this the last 2 times I've had you on, but like you're not the average looking woman, and you are going to get stares and attention like when you walk outside, but not asking the same question again because it's just boring and dull. But like people talk about, like the bad encounters that they might have and stuff, but is there one encounter that you remember off the top of your head that is like the most positive, or like a really positive encounter that like really stands out above all the other ones that you might have had?
My gosh, I have them every day. I really do. I mean, a lot of times people are like, you know, I very rarely do I get negative. I'll go to the supermarket and people just come up to me and, you know, just want to take out a few minutes out of their time just to tell me that how they admire my dedication, and I just love that. But one time I remember that I went to the supermarket and I was walking and there was a couple and they kept staring at me, and I was like, well, they're probably staring at me because they think I look like like a freak or whatever, but they kept staring at me and staring at me, and then I went to my car. I was putting my groceries in the car, and they actually drove up in their car and they drove next to me and they said, we just really want to tell you that we really admire your dedication and the hard work that you put into it, because it really shows. And I was like, here I am thinking that they were thinking negative, and they actually took the time and they kept looking at me and they actually took the time to go around in the parking lot, drive next to me and say, wow, that's amazing what you do. And I'm like, I'm so touched because I sometimes I don't think about it. I just go about my day, everyday routine, and you don't realize who's watching you and saying, "Wow, that's amazing." You know, it's like and I get that all the time, and I love it. And I just think just by doing what I love, that people can actually get inspired by it, or and take the time and compliment me. It's really great. It just makes bodybuilding and doing the sport so much better.
That is so non-Midwestern that I could never even see myself doing it. Like I'm the Midwestern though, where it's like you are taught since birth, like never make a scene, never do anything like that. Or it's like I would be too nervous to like go up and like say something to anyone, just because like it's like my biggest fear is that I waste someone's time or that I bother someone. So I would just be like, from afar, I'd just be like, oh yeah, she looks nice. But like hearing people like actually walk up to people and say like, oh, you look amazing. That is just too non how I was raised, where it's like, no, you don't bother anyone, like, unless that's our being Norwegian too. That's our deepest. And like, don't you have a family that lives in, or you have family that lives
My
in
sister lives in
Denmark?
Denmark.
So
Yeah.
she kind of knows that we're the whole Scandinavian thing, where it's like
Oh
never
yeah.
make a scene, never try. So that's the whole
Well, I went to Denmark. I
yeah,
visited her. I felt that.
yeah.
Like people would stare at me, but I didn't know if it was positive or negative, But first of all, I'm darker. And on top of it, I have muscles, and they were like, what the hell is this? But, and then I went to the gym over there and people actually did come up to me and say, wow.
Well, I think it's different if I saw you in the gym, then yeah, I'd be like, okay, she looks great. But like if I saw you in soup, yeah, that whole Scandinavian, that was
Yeah.
still ingrained to me, where it's like, no, you do not make a scene, you mind your own damn business, and you don't ever like that's the Scandinavian person's biggest fear, is that they make a scene or that they cause like that they draw too much.
Really.
So yeah, that's well again, I will be nice, stuff like that, but it's like, yeah, when I hear those stories, it's like, hey, good for you, because if someone came up to me and said you look great, I will say when I was in really good shape, one grandma came up to me and she goes, I need a strong guy like you to come and help me put this in my cart. And I was like, of
That's
course,
funny.
of course I will. But so yeah, that is great. But this is another new question that I came up with, and I think this to
Okay.
myself every single time I have a health and fitness guest on. Regardless, it's human nature in me. Even though I've talked to so many of them, I think to myself, why do they do this to themselves? Why do they put themselves through this? I hear all these prep brain stories, and just the human being in me is like, why do they do this? Now, obviously, I know why, and I appreciate it, because the dedication is hard, but even you have to think this to yourself at least every prep. And if you deny it, I will say, you know what, she's my guest, so I'm going to be nice and I'm going to not call her out for it. But
Right.
I bet you still even have friends and family to this day who go, how do you do this? Why do you do this to yourself? What is your why? How do you like to answer that to people who might just come up to you and say, like, I don't understand why or how you're able to do this?
Ah, why do I do it? Well, I love it. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I have my days and I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. I'm tired. I'm grumpy. But I don't, that's a great question because I just, I love bodybuilding. I love prepping for shows. I love being on the stage. I love seeing from beginning of prep all the way to the end of being on that stage. I just love the whole process of it. I just love it. I don't have any other, you know, reasoning behind it. I love what it taught me. Like I said, it taught me a lot of structure, dedication, and it's just I've met a lot of people through this sport that that admire what I do and want to come to my gym because I do. It's not just the whole bodybuilding thing. It's my gym too. It's everything together, and I just it makes me feel whole. It makes me feel like it gives me purpose. It really does. Not only being on stage, but also like I said, it gives me purpose to help people get fit, or if somebody wants to do their first show and to help them, with that, I love that. Like, why can't I? If I can help them get ready and transfer that onto them, I mean, it just makes me feel whole.
Oh yeah, like we've mentioned this plenty of times, but yeah, like that community side of the sport is the biggest thing for me that really
Yeah.
just shocked me is how great it is. And yeah, that is, I mean, it is a village really basically. Yeah, where
It is. It is. And that's another thing too. Like I've built so many friendships with competitive the girls, judges, everybody. Yeah, the promoters of the shows, and just yeah, like you said, it's just the whole community of it. It's just you feel like you belong. It's very nice.
well, and before we wrap things up here, where's your gym at? So if anyone's in the area and they need a gym to train at, they can go and give it a try.
My gym is in South Miami. It's called Design Performance. It's a small gym. It's usually, trainer, you have to come in with a trainer, but I mean, whoever wants to pop in and come and check it out, it's in South Miami, Design Performance. And I can
Yeah.
send you the
Oh
address or
yeah.
whatever it is.
Well,
But then,
I'll have it on the screen down below probably as you're talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
it. So
Or
yeah.
my Instagram, if you follow me on the Instagram, it's IFBB Pro Jeannie Feldman. And you want to come stop by, I'll send you the address, phone number, whatever it is you want. I would love to have whoever wants to stop by.
Absolutely. I'll leave a link to that. And the two final questions that I ask every guest and will continue to ask every guest. I mean, if you could change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone will go along with it, will be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Ah, that's right. You do ask that question. I always get stuck on this question too. Um, I'm not one to like sit there and say, okay, well, I don't like this or I don't like that. I mean, the one thing that I do like what we spoke about already is I don't like that a lot of these shows, for example, like the Arnold pick certain divisions that they don't want, you know. Um, some people say the judging, but I feel so far I've never experienced any unfair judging on my part. I've always been, respectful of their choices, but I'm happy with that. But yeah, I just don't like the fact that they can pick and choose which divisions they want and they don't want. A lot of women say too that the prize money for is different from different divisions. For example, my division, women's physique, gets the least amount prize money than any division. I think, whereas bikini and I don't know, wellness figure or whatever. I know they get more money, but it seems like we get less. I don't know the reasoning behind it. Maybe because there's not as many. Maybe we don't bring in as much money as say bikini competitors do. But I just think that across the board, everybody should get the same amount.
Which is always funny because like if you were to probably cost or like total up the amount of cost that it takes to compete in figure, physique, and bikini, physique might probably be the most expensive one just based on all the other stuff that
Oh
goes
yeah,
along with that. Like that
yeah,
might be the most expensive one. So the fact that they're
it's
getting the
true.
least amount of money, like I don't get that. For me, yeah, it's like for me, if you turn pro, there should always be like a stipend. Like, let's say it doesn't even have to be that much money, like 20 to 30, maybe even like $40,000, just a stipend that you can
Right.
have, just so that you don't, because people don't realize how much of the financial stress that would take off, just to have that little amount, where then you could focus more on competing and just yeah.
That and traveling. Imagine like you have to pay for a hotel, you have to pay for everything, flight to be able to. There's women that are doing not only that they're coming from Europe. These poor girls come from all the way from Europe, here. They have to stay here for a good, what, at least 6 months because they have to hit show after show before going back. Oops, what happened there?
Oh, you're
So,
fine now. Yeah, you're fine.
so yeah, so they have to stay here for 6 months, pay for hotel. They're not sponsored by anybody, and it's a ton of money. And I know that they're coming not for the money. I know they're coming for the sport and to compete. But at the same time, it's like it's a little bit of a slap in the face when a little bikini, the bikini girls are getting more, and our division is getting less.
Yeah, and if you do
I don't want
compete,
to just point out bikini. I'm just saying in general.
oh, absolutely. And I mean, if you really get into the sport for the money, then I got some other Ponzi schemes that I could sell to you really then. So, yeah, it's just, I mean, hey,
Yeah.
more power to these guests that they do that. And, when we do have you on a year from now, because I'd love to talk to you again in another year, and I'll have 3 new other questions to ask you, really. Basically, I'm slowly but
Listen,
surely getting a
I
whole
mean,
new pod.
yeah, I mean, every year things change, so
Yeah.
those questions can get a different answer every
Yep,
time. So
absolutely. Yeah, I just try to change things up a little bit because it's like, honestly, the amount of guests that I have on, I have to like keep a somewhat same formula because like if I were to come up with
yeah,
completely new questions for every guest, that alone
I
would
kind
be,
of remember that. Just that last question that you
yeah.
asked me. I'm like,
Well, that's
you
because that's
said
one
that.
that I'm going to ask regardless of it. There's probably like 4 or 5 questions that I ask every single time I'll have you on, and there's like 10 or 15 other ones that I'll try to change things up a little bit. But where would you like to be at in a year? Where would you like to be at?
I would like to be Olympia. I'm hoping to be top 5. That's what I would like to be. So that's as far as my goals. As far as competing, that's my goal. I would like to be in the top 5 at the Olympia. That would make me very, very, very happy. Um, Personally, like business wise, I mean, I'm happy. My gym is doing great and it's growing, and we're getting a lot of great members. And you know, other than that, I'm happy. I'm happy as can be. I just, I want to move up on the Olympia, and hopefully make it to that top 5. That would be my goal.
Well, actually, in your case too, one thing that I also wish they would change is that like I like how they do like best poser and stuff like that shows, but I wish that they would give like best for each of the individual poses that you do. Like if they did like a best back pose or a
Oh
best
yeah,
front double, if they did
that's,
like because you would win best back, like every single time, but
I
like
like that. I'd win the back one for sure.
absolutely. So that's why I wish that they would do like even more individualized because
Great
each of those
idea.
poses is hard enough as it is. So it's like, yeah, do like a best most muscular, best front double, best side chest, a best side
I'm
try.
gonna suggest that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
suggest that.
They should, and
That's a
obviously you
great
don't have to give them
idea.
like a lot of money, but like just to even like have a trophy and just something like that because yeah, that
Yeah.
people don't realize how hard even these individual poses are as it is anyways, and it's just like, yeah. I mean, for
Hey,
every other sport, like they award the best hitter in the league, not, and they also award like the best home run hitter and the guy that gets like
that's
the most
that's
RBIs and
true.
stuff, and it's like, yeah.
That
So
is a great idea. I'm gonna mention that. Maybe they'll jump on that idea.
I just thought of that myself, but yeah,
And I say
everyone.
I got it from you.
Thank you. I appreciate that at least. But again, you guys go and check her out. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. And again, thank you so much again for coming on, and I cannot wait to
It's
have you on
always
again.
always a pleasure talking to you. I always have so much fun. Thank
I
you for
I,
having
I
me.
appreciate that. That's the only reason I still do these things already because I just enjoy talking to the people. I don't do this for the $120 a month on YouTube I make everyone. But again, thank you so much everyone for listening to this. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.